Hello and welcome to my latest video on Jurassic World Alive. And in today's video I'm going to be looking at the new 3.7 unique creature RAJADOTHULUS, and I'm going to run through its abilities, its resistances, stats. Anyway, let's get into it. So RAJADOTHULUS, what does it say? It says combining a RAJADOTHULUS with a Scelidosaurus was an extremely good idea, as this new species combines the aggressiveness of the former while granting it the rough and protective skin of the latter. A beautiful scientific achievement. Beautiful. Okay, well, I wouldn't say a beautiful creature. I mean, maybe a beautiful scientific achievement, but it's not a pretty dinosaur. But I think it's a good design. I like the design. In the game, I get a little bit triggered, I'll be honest, by all the bumps on it. That does something with my head. Hopefully it doesn't do the same for you. Anyway, hybrid ingredients, as it says, it's made up of RAJADOTHULUS and Scelidosaurus, both legendary. Okay, and RAJADOTHULUS is a resilient creature. Both its ingredients are resilient as well. Okay, let's look at its abilities. Slowing resilient strike. Okay, so it cleanses reduced damage for itself, and then it targets its highest speed opponent, removes dodge, removes cloak, and removes speed increase. Gives a ×1 attack, makes it vulnerable for 2 turns, 1 attack, and reduces speed by 50% for 2 turns, 4 attacks. That's quite a good kind of rounded base ability there. Next off, we have regenerating bulwark. So it targets itself and gives itself a 20% heal based on max HP, 50% shield for 2 turns, 4 attacks, and increases armor by 50% for 2 turns, 4 attacks. And then in terms of the highest speed opponent, that gets vulnerable for 2 turns, 1 attack, cooldown of 1. Next up, we have taunting impact. We get a 50% shield for 2 turns, 4 attacks, and a taunt for 1 turn. RAJADOTHULUS has a 75% chance to stun the highest damage opponent for 1 turn, and does a ×1.5 attack, cooldown of 2. Next up, resilient group rampage. Okay, for itself, it removes the damage decrease. It targets all opponents. Does removes dodge, cloak, and speed increase. Does a ×2 attack and makes that opponent vulnerable for 2 turns, 1 attack. So that's his 4 kind of base moves, and as you can see, 3 of those abilities have attacks and 2 of them have shields. So that's very much the defensive element of this creature is the shields. Okay, let's move on to its counter. Distracting vulnerability counter. So as it says, it's a counter attack. Targets the attacker, reduces damage by 50% for 2 turns, 4 attacks. Does a 0.5 times attack and makes it vulnerable for 2 turns, 2 attacks. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of making the opponent vulnerable, reducing damage by 50% quite often. So again, this is in its arsenal of making sure it doesn't take damage and its damage is optimized. Okay, reinforce on escape. So if the opponent escapes, RAJADOTHULUS will increase its armor by 25% for 2 turns, 4 attacks. We'll put up a 50% shield for 2 turns, 4 attacks as well. And then if you're lucky enough to get it to enhancement tier 5, you'll get this reactive ability, which is at the start of the turn. If the opponent is vulnerable, quite frankly, chances are it will be, given all the abilities RAJADOTHULUS has, it will increase the damage by 15% for 2 turns, 2 attacks. Okay, so there we have the abilities. As I said, quite rounded. We've got shields, we've got vulnerability of the opponent, we've got reducing damage, and these are very much keeping with a resilient creature. Okay, so let's have a look at its stats, and we'll also look at its counters as well. So base level, so as soon as you create RAJADOTHULUS, you will get 4900 for its health, 1300 damage, 112 speed, 30% armor, 25% crit chance and 125% crit damage. Okay, we'll move on to resistances. I'll come back to boost profile in a second. So in terms of resistances, we've got 50% reduced damage, 100% speed decrease, so its speed cannot be decreased. It has 75% resistance to stun, has 50% reduction in crit chance. It has 75% swap prevention resistance, 50% rend resistance, 33% damage over time, and 100% resistance to its armor being reduced. Okay, back up to boost profile. So we're looking at 11 boosts to health and 20 boosts to damage, and that gives you, with the enhancements, a health of 8353, damage of 2607, speed of 114, and obviously the rest remains the same. Okay, so counters. Now this is my interpretation of where RAJADOTHULUS has its weaknesses or shortcomings, and what creatures can probably take advantage of that. So first off, it doesn't have any resistance to affliction. So we've got Dracolux, we've got Sarpanthera, and we've got Sinraptor, who have affliction abilities. So that will reduce the resistances that RAJADOTHULUS has. And then similarly, damage over time. So quite often you'll see an affliction ability being activated and resistance to damage over time being reduced and damage over time being applied to the opponent. And Dracolux, Tyrannokiri and Sinraptor have that ability. And as it says there, RAJADOTHULUS does not have a cleanse ability. It does cleanse reduce damage, but it can't cleanse damage over time. So that may be a tactic you might want to look into, having that affliction and that damage over time combination. Okay, and then we come to the creatures who can break shield. So the RAJADOTHULUS's biggest, or one of its biggest defenses is sticking up that 50% shield. Well, as you can see there, you've got 10 creatures. And these aren't all the creatures, obviously, couldn't fit them on the page. These are just the ones which I feel are probably meta or used by a lot of players. So, and so these are the creatures that can break or nullify shields. Then bottom left, swap in attack, which actually again breaks or nullifies shields, and you've got Dracolux and Thylus Intrepidus there. You'll be very familiar with those abilities as they swap in, and Dracolux can nullify shields, and Thylus will destroy the shield. Next deck, armor. So this is a defense of your opponent. So RAJADOTHULUS doesn't have an ability which it can bypass armor. So if you've got a high armor, and I'm kind of looking at around the kind of 25-30+% armor here, not necessarily base, but you may have an ability which increases your armor to that level. And as you can see there, we've got 7 creatures that are pretty prevalent across people's teams there. Well, maybe not the Scorpion, but certainly the rest. And then we've got shield protection. So again, this is a defense mechanism. RAJADOTHULUS, like as I said, can't break shields. So if you've got a shield as a protector, then that's going to be great for you. Okay, and as you can see, we've got four of the dominant creatures there that can put up a shield to defend itself against RAJADOTHULUS's attacks. So what do you think of Rajasaur and Rajadothulus? How do they stack up against one another? I mean, for me, I think Rajasaur just edges it. I think on the base stats, Rajadothulus obviously is better, but when it comes to the abilities, you've got that Rajasaur has that rampage move that has a cooldown of 1 rather than a cooldown of 2 for Rajadothulus, and it has a couple of priority moves as well. And then when we look at the counter attack, is much better than Rajadothulus. It's a ×1 compared to a times 0.5. It's bypassing armor, so I think that's more effective. I also think this swap-in attack is probably more effective than the on escape ability that Rajadothulus has. But granted, both the reactive abilities, clearly Rajadothulus is superior to Rajasaur's. But overall, I think Rajasaur could actually be edging Rajadothulus. Anyway, what do you think? I'd be really interested to hear what your thoughts are on that comparison, and will it make a difference to the meta in terms of Rajadothulus, or do you think we'll get an Apex? I don't know. Personally, I'm not really enamored with Rajadothulus, as you might be able to tell. I don't think it's a meta creature by any stretch of the imagination. I think it'll be a step up to the a potential Apex, but we'll see. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please do subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. It really helps this channel grow. And please do put comments below. I always read them. Okay, till next time. Bye bye now.